Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of The House of Halliwell. I'm Brian Krause, and I come to you this evening with a heavy heart after learning the news of Shannen Doherty's passing just yesterday afternoon. I know all of us here at the House of Halliwell, iHeartMedia, social media, all over the world are shocked, devastated, too young, too talented, too loving, too grateful, too early. Shannen will dearly be missed, and we are so honored that she had come on with us, or had us along with her on this new incantation of the House of Halliwell. We were lucky enough to record 4 episodes in the last week or so, and Shannen was just so motivated and determined to help make this show a success and give all of you more insight into what it was in the making and the fun and the behind the scenes of Charmed. And when Shannen wanted to get something done, she got it done. And that's something I learned a long time ago, watching her on set and work and be such a professional and so good at what she did. She's had a long-lasting impression on me. I'm sorry, I'm bumbling a little. I'm find it hard to say everything I want to say. So perhaps I'll leave you off with this. I know how grateful Shannen was, as I was lucky enough to travel with her to many different places and Comic-Cons and go backstage and hear from her the things that affected her emotionally. Joyously, it gave her so much emotionally, and meeting the fans and hearing the stories and knowing how much it meant to all of you. It filled her greatly, and I know that she believed in the House of Halliwell to be the little bit that she was able to give back. And so all of us here at the House of Halliwell want to honor that, and we are going to continue on in her name. Kick frickin' ass, because that's what she would do. And so from us at the House of Halliwell, we love you and we thank you, and please keep Shannen in your prayers, and all her family, and take care of yourself. And I hope you enjoy this next episode as much as I do. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of House of Halliwell.
Episode 1, formerly known as the pilot, Something Wicca This Way Comes, premiered October 7th, 1998. The synopsis of this episode: the series kicks off with the Halliwell sisters back under one roof despite some sisterly drama. Meanwhile, a killer is on the loose in San Francisco, and Prue's ex-boyfriend, Inspector Andy, is on the case. Phoebe finds the Book of Shadows in the attic, and all 3 sisters suddenly have magical powers. When Piper's boyfriend ends up being a warlock in disguise, the sisters come to terms with the fact that life will never be the same.
Holly, I'm going to turn this over to you, because you guys are the pros that know how to do a rewatch of a rewatch of a rewatch. I've never done this before.
Well, did you enjoy it?
The rewatch?
Yeah.
I did.
Did you watch everything like I did? Like, I know we got dailies. I watched every second of dailies.
You mean when we were filming the show?
I don't remember if you watched them or not.
Like occasionally, but really only the episodes I directed.
So I watched dailies, every second of them, and then I would watch every episode once only. So everybody else in the world is clearly very ahead of us.
I don't like watching dailies because I feel that when I watch dailies, I become very conscious of certain things that I do. And I think as an actor, it's not good for you. Like, I think it restricts you in a lot of ways. I watched the very first day of dailies just to see if the lighting was good and if we all looked good.
Yeah.
But then past that, I just didn't want to restrict myself by being too self-conscious.
Right. Yeah. You would pick up your quirks, your habits that you would do over and over again.
Yes.
That I do remember.
Yeah.
Hi, John.
Holly?
Mr. Kretschmer. He's like, you are our charmed OG director of the day.
Thank you. I am very proud to say that I directed more Charmed than any other single director.
Yeah.
How many episodes did you direct?
17.
Whoa.
Only 17.
They were all when I was on, or did you cheat on me?
No.
He cheated.
Did you cheat on me, John?
He did.
Yes, I did. I have to admit. But I did do 3 with you, Shannen, so that counts for something.
It does.
Oh my God, you only did 3 with me out of 17. What is happening here?
You made a big impression.
You were one of my favorite directors. You cheated on me.
You're so sweet. You're so sweet. Let's change the subject, shall we?
Oh, wow. He's getting uncomfortable already. Hot seat, John.
Yeah.
That's what really this is this time around.
It's a brand new House of Halliwell. So
it's a totally different vibe.
Totally different vibe here.
Hot seat, House of Halliwell.
So, but you directed, most important, you directed the pilot, which really set the tone for the show.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that, Shannen. There was I was asked to direct the 20-minute presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was unavailable because I was working as a producer-director on another show, which was a mistake because I should have done the Charmed presentation. But nonetheless,
absolutely.
Bruce Seth Green came in and did the 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they replaced the third sister when I was hired to do the entire episode. So I reshot everything with the exception of Holly's confrontation in the elevator with Jeremy.
Right. So
basically everything.
Basically, yes.
It's not that complicated. Yes, you directed the pilot.
Yeah.
I never watched, because I don't watch anything that I'm on. The only episodes I watched were the ones I directed, and I watched it in the editing room as we were editing. So for me to do this rewatch and actually have to rewatch it, I gotta be honest with you. I was like really, really impressed by the pilot. I was, and maybe I was looking at it with like a director's eye.
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
I was blown away by the lighting. I was blown away by the shots, the movement of the camera, the direction, how, you really felt the sisters like bond in their relationship. And I was just like, I spoke to Holly about it and I was like, oh my God, like that pilot was so good. So kudos to you, man, because you did an amazing job.
Thank you. Well, as I've told you privately, it was a very easy job to do because you guys were so fantastic. And Brian, I wish I could include you, but you weren't in the episode, or Drew. but you came, when you guys came in, same thing happened. It was always a pleasure to come to the show because everyone was so professional, so prepared. There were never any contentious fights. There were creative discussions, but we always seemed to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And the thing that I appreciated with you and Holly was that you guys were so well prepared that when we shot a scene, we shot it very quickly because there wasn't a lot there. there was no need to tweak the performances. You guys were just dialed into these characters from the get-go. So if the pilot is successful, I have to say that 80% of that has to do with you guys and not me. And with the script too, which afforded me a lot of opportunities. And with Tommy Del Ruth, who was the cameraman, who did a wonderful job and came up with some wonderful ideas. And, you have to mention Dean Mitzner, who was the production designer who built that wonderful interior set.
Yeah.
And
it was gorgeous, that set.
Yeah. And then I also have to do a tip of the hat to Steve Labette, who was the visual effects guy. I think, you look at this pilot, which was 28 years ago, I think, and it's not up to the snuff of what we can do today. But I have to say the visual effects are pretty darn good for that period, and they hold up pretty well. And I don't know, Holly and Shannen, if you remember, as the year progressed, getting the visual effects became easier. We didn't have to freeze. We didn't have to bring in the blue screen. It became a much quicker process. But that first episode required a lot of technical work to get it to work. Especially where you froze people, that was very hard.
It was awkward.
But thank you, Shannen. I watched it yesterday and I thought, it holds up pretty well. And I think it's a testament
holds up really well.
Oh, I think it's a testament to everyone involved in the show that this many years later, it is still an incredibly popular show on streaming services. I mean, it's amazing that it is constantly running to this day.
But I did notice in the pilot, what really stood out to me, one of the things was the relationship and the acting between Ted King and Dorian.
Yeah.
They were so good together. And,
right off the bat.
And I didn't really remember that chemistry. Yeah. And so when I watched it, I think that a lot of that is from direction. It's obviously from the two of them as well. But for you to not take credit for that, you're super humble and that's lovely. But I wasn't there for their scenes, right? But whatever you did, whatever that connection was that you captured between the two of them, they were really, really good together.
That was my favorite line, I think, in the whole pilot, when he was like, Dorian goes, she didn't direct Jack. And I was like, I'm laughing all by myself. They were so good.
It's very sweet of you to say that, Shannen, but I'll be completely honest with you. That was all them. I don't remember going in there and having to do much work. Those scenes, they were very enthusiastic, but those were some of the first things we filmed, as I remember, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Well, John, the pilot really had a feeling of, I thought I was watching a movie, like a feature film. It had a feeling of like an 80s family thriller, horror thriller excitement, and which was very unusual for television at that time. They were so separate. So when you were booked to do the pilot and you brought on, how much were you able to share, this is what I want to do with it, and brought in the cinematic view and the way you added shots and all of that?
I don't remember any tonal or stylistic discussions with Duke or with Connie or with Brad specifically. I think Jim Conway who was familiar with my work, was comfortable bringing me in, knowing what I was going to do with it. The one thing that I did have an argument with Aaron about was I didn't want to do a lot of establishing shots. If you guys remember, spelling shows were famous for having a shot of a hospital with a sign and then zooming in. And
yes.
And I did not want to do that. And I Brad, to his credit, went to Duke, and Duke went to Aaron and said, we've got to update the look of these shows. And so for the most part, we were able to eliminate all the establishing shots, or as many as we could.
Yeah, as many as we could, sure.
But other than that, I mean, it was part of the reason there was so much movement is that Tommy, having done ER, was very familiar with doing long steady cam shots and complicated things. And Holly, if you remember in the next episode, there's that really amazing steady cam shot in the bar with you and Alyssa. Anyway, it's a different show. But that was Tommy. He was very adept at, I would say, can we do this? And he'd say, no problem. And we did it, so he made it very easy.
Yeah, our crew was amazing, and the camera department was like phenomenal. I never felt like they were intrusive. It wasn't like they're constantly in your eye line, and they were really, really good. Like we didn't have to do a lot of takes. They nailed it on the first try every single time. And yes. I do remember that it was kind of experimental, I guess you could say, because Tommy did come from ER and there were those long Steadicam shots. And then we started going into like handheld, and I loved that because that was like my personal style. So it was extremely exciting.
It was hard too.
It was hard, but it was exciting. You could feel how good the show was going to be. It was bizarre. It was like you were excited because you were like, oh, this is really good. And our crew is really good, and our director is really good, and all the actors are really good. So you were able to be like, there's no way this show isn't getting picked up.
I felt like I was treading water the whole time. Like, I was overexerting all of my efforts. Like I was just trying so hard, which I think is reflected in Piper.
Yes.
The Hyper Piper walk.
Just in the way she walks. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And, it wasn't until that we went into Les Sheldon's trailer and I saw the trailer, that I saw the credits and what we heard the music, that I felt like, oh, maybe this is actually something that's going to be, like, I got chills.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
You said in the second episode, you were in the makeup trailer when I think, I don't know how you got the information, but you basically said, we're a hit,
Yeah.
And it was like, everyone sort of was very, I have to say, we had more fun doing that pilot than I can imagine being on any other show. I mean, I just remember it being a lot of fun. Shannen, you and I would joke around. There was one time when you took a Polaroid of me holding a martini glass and a cigarette. You remember that?
Yes.
Which I don't partake in either. But you then put it up on the monitor, as this is our leader kind of thing. But it was just like that. We had fun. We were relaxed. It was, we had confidence in the material, and I had confidence in you guys and in the crew. So it was just smooth sailing. I don't remember any moment of there being difficulty or tension. Maybe that's just history putting a gloss on it. But
no, we had nothing to lose. We had nothing to lose and everything to prove. And so, it was, they're going to give us these toys in this project and we're going to see if it floats, basically.
How many days did you guys have to shoot that pilot?
7 days. It was.
Was it 7?
Yeah, it was 7 because we didn't get to start doing 8 days until later on. So it was 7 days.
7 days.
They tried to get us to do it in 7 in the beginning, but the special effects and then add stunts to that and makeup, forget it. It was not possible.
Yeah,
okay.
But that was after the pilot that it was like decided. So in the pilot, I mean, really, for you to shoot that pilot with all of the special effects and everything in 7 days, that's pretty remarkable.
That's insane, because usually they give pilots like double, like a pilot's 14 days or 18 days. Like to really kind of get
No, actually the presentation was...
Yeah, you got to remember we had the presentation that we had already shot.
The show was a go, so we had to keep doing episodes. Normally when you do a pilot and you have 10 days to do it, they then put it together and then they have to sell it. The show had been sold.
Right. So okay. So, and did it feel different for you girls being from the presentation to then the first episode? Did it feel drastically different outside of the recasting?
I don't think it felt drastically different, but it definitely felt different. I will say that Lori Rom, who played Phoebe in the beginning, was or for the presentation was really great. She was a great actress. And, you know, Lori and Alyssa are very, very, very different people. So Lori's performance was different than Alyssa's. Lori was a lot like Holly and I in the sense of very grounded in drama. And that's, you know, it was, the presentation was much more serious and it was way darker, which was my style, right? So I loved the presentation. I thought like everybody was great. But when Alyssa came in, you know, it provided like a levity that I think the show ended up needing. And she came in and she did a great job. And yeah, just brought like a slightly different flavor to the show. And to be honest, like when I watched it, I was like, God, you know, they accept that they're witches so easily. Like, especially Phoebe, she's like, oh, I'm a witch. I'm like, who thinks like that? Like that part sort of threw me off.
That part was a little rushed.
And I was like, it could never have worked with Lori because she was so grounded and so serious that it would have felt fake. But with Alyssa, you were like, of course she believes she's a witch immediately, you know? Like,
it totally played her personality, that bubbly kind of like trying to figure like, oh, now there's purpose. Like like
she's searching for her purpose anyway. And this gives it to her.
Exactly. And so I think that was really well played. But one more question about that, was the presentation like verbatim? Basically, it was the same exact script and same shot, essentially the same kind of shots or whatever. And then you just...
I mean, from my perspective, it was only 20 minutes. It wasn't a full episode.
Right.
Yeah.
There were scenes that weren't included.
Okay.
But Bruce and I have similar styles. And so I would sometimes use what he had shot as a template for what I wanted to do, but I did tweak things to accommodate my own personal aesthetic sense.
Right. Because Pilot's so much... Please. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, a pilot director really is responsible for establishing ultimately the look and feel of a show, right? And so the fact that you were tasked with that and kind of everything that happened 170 plus episodes was really established and started with you and your kind of vision with Tom to kind of set the tone and the mood right away.
Yeah. You know, in watching it, there were only 3 things that dated the show. And I've mentioned this before. One was Holly in a phone booth, which just, you know, I think that there are people in this world who don't even know what a phone booth is anymore.
Possibly.
When TW says, or when Shannen accuses TW of checking about her past, it's like, well, now this was an innocent time before social media. So it was much more difficult. And the third is he hands you his card as opposed to just saying, here's my number, which, you know, shows the huge use of cell phones since then.
I still do that. I hand people my card all the time.
Also, you rocked a cell phone. You had a cell phone. That was a big, like Shannon's character had a cell phone, I think within the second episode.
I mean, maybe
you answered in the elevator.
The iPhone had not yet come out. They were still using flip phones at this point.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
What's a flip phone?
Crazy. What's a flip phone? He says.
I loved my flip phone.
I loved it. I miss buttons.
Yeah, of course you do.
My favorite was a BlackBerry.
Remember when there were buttons?
You still want payphones, be honest.
But I think the show. I think the show, you know, holds up pretty well stylistically and artistically. It's not dated like some shows can be.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why it keeps going. I mean, it keeps going because the fans connected to it so much, but also because it still feels pretty relevant even today, maybe even more so today. So I think that's, you know, why it continues to stream everywhere. I think it's why the fans are still so dedicated and watch it over and over and over and over again. Like I said, I didn't find anything that was out of place or that was dated when I rewatched it, I was pleasantly shocked and was like, oh, hey, we all did a really good job. Like I even patted myself on the back, which I never do. I'm always so critical of myself. But I was like, hey, you really brought Prue to life. And I was
you did. Yeah, for sure.
But like, oh my God, her ex-boyfriend, Roger, so gross.
So
how did you
gross.
date Roger? That was my question.
How
the whole
did you
time.
two
I'm
fight
like,
over Roger?
He was a guy that I worked for or worked with who just totally took like my ideas and credit for my work. And he was just, the actor obviously was really good because the character was sleazy and he came across so sleazy. And I know he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was actually a really nice guy, but I'm still creeped out by it. I'm like, and then to see Prue and Andy's, like we actually had really good chemistry as well.
You did.
It was, yeah.
Everybody wonders what happened to that relationship.
What did happen in that relationship?
We'll get to it.
I can tell you, I have a detailed breakdown of what happened to that relationship, starting with a red flag counter.
Red flag number one.
I have a lot of red flags on
Mr. Andy.
Yes, sir.
Really? So Prue is not like me because Prue is better about catching red flags, whereas I run towards them.
Right.
Prue didn't catch any of these red flags.
Really? Well, then why did they break up? Yes, she did. She caught red flags. That's why they broke up.
Took a while.
Okay, listen, I was married for over 11 years.
Compromised.
So
I'm probably not the best person to break down this relationship.
I know. You're not true.
I'm sorry.
John, how difficult, I mean, I know things have changed now, CGI and the whole thing. There was a lot of lightning and you had massive rain in this episode, which culminated with the soundtrack, which came right behind it, which I thought the music and the soundtrack in this episode was fantastic and fit so well and helped push the story. How difficult was it filming back then so practically and then matching up that soundtrack? Were you involved in that end of the show as well in the edit and pushing the sound of the show?
I don't think I couldn't participate in the final mix because I was shooting the next episode. So you have to give the post-production people credit for that. I don't remember there being sound issues from the rain that was created on stage, because that's usually fairly well controlled with horsehair and troughs and things like that. And lightning is very easily done back in those days, which didn't make much noise. So I don't recall there being issues with dialogue in the soundtrack, personally.
But it was used really craftily, and with the music, that's what kind of got me into some of it, which I didn't notice the first time, is how much it was used to kind of propel some of the emotions of the story, and the way you placed it was fantastic.
Well, that's the post-production people. I couldn't participate in the spotting of the music or the discussions with the composer, unfortunately, because as an itinerant television director, you're always working on something else. And I was literally filming the next episode or editing the next episode. So I didn't have you have to give that credit to Connie and Brad and everyone in post-production.
Okay, sorry.
But thank you for the compliment, but I can't take credit for it.
So when did the girls first discover, when was it? Because I was always amazed that they accepted that they, as I said before, that they were witches right away. So just recapping the actual episode. I know that, they find the Book of Shadows, they have the Ouija board, and the Ouija board starts doing its thing on its own, but still to accept it so easily. And Holly, your character then starts, I think Prue was the one who was so doubtful, but even your character, the sort of pragmatic one, I would say, started accepting it pretty quickly as well.
Well, it worked out for her career-wise. That's why. Remember when I freeze the chef and he's about to eat something that wasn't finished, which, by the way, no one told me that would be my hand movement for 8 years when I was grabbing for that. No one told me until I think it was Jim Conway said in the next episode, no, that's your thing. That's what you do. And I was like, forever? I didn't know. I would have planned more carefully.
Yeah, that was a thing of how we used our powers. Because remember, they had me squinting at first.
Yeah, and you weren't down with it.
It was like, guys, I'm going to have so many wrinkles around my eyes. This is not good. And because I had to exaggerate it so that the audience could actually see it. Yeah. And I can't remember. I mean, obviously, as I watch the show, I'll figure out which episode I finally got to start using my hand for the motion. But
right. That was a big deal, though. You had to get that approved.
It took me a lot. It took a lot of meetings with Aaron.
Get your hand
lot
approved.
Of phone calls with Aaron. It was kind of like
my hair.
It was kind of like your hair, our wardrobe. We couldn't change things because, and he was right in a way. His whole idea about us changing how we looked, he said that an audience really needed to connect with us before we changed anything. Unfortunately, he thought that meant never changing anything. And I was definitely not down with that. I was like, no. I'm going to change my hair up and wear different clothes. And you eventually had to stand up for yourself too and be like, no, my hair is not going to be like this for, however many seasons we go.
A phone call at home, the bat phone rang and said that Aaron Spelling was on the phone. And I thought I was getting fired.
It's such a scary phone call to get.
Yeah, I thought I was getting fired, but literally he was calling me about the bangs. The bangs need to come back. And I was like, what? This is a phone call about my hair? And he said, yeah, it's your identity. It's who you are. It's who Piper is. You have to have the bangs.
Yeah, you were not thrilled with that.
Never again.
Definitely not thrilled.
Never again in my whole life, actually.
We like the bangs.
Stop it.
I don't know if you remember this moment, but when we did the scene in the bar where you first see the cream move toward your coffee and then bubble into your coffee, and then the script was that you had then grabbed Alyssa's drink and downed it. I don't know if you remember that you and I had a discussion at that moment where I pulled you aside and very quietly said, look, I don't know if you want to do the drinking thing based on what people have said about you in the past, but I would prefer not to do that if that's okay with you. And you said, you agreed with me. And so we did one version with the liquor and one without. And in the director's cut, I didn't use the liquor. I didn't use the drink, but of course in the pilot,
they did use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Because I remember being like, wow, there's somebody who's actually looking out for me in a personal way, which was really nice because obviously I hadn't been looked out for a really long time. So you were conscious of, the backstory of me or the backstory that people created for me. Yeah, but it was in fact in there. At the end of the day, maybe because it's so many years, 28 years, is that what we all decided later?
Yes.
That
1998.
It didn't even bother me seeing it again when I rewatched. I was like, yeah, I would probably down a drink. If I see cream move over and go into my thing, that would freak me out, honestly.
It's warranted.
Yeah, it's warranted.
But it was important to me.
I know.
To at least make you aware of it. And I was, not to sound too paternalistic, but I was trying to protect you.
I know.
Because I love you, and I loved working with you. And I didn't want any sort of garbage to be interfering with your performance. So
I appreciate that. And I felt it from you when you took me aside and you were like, with the drinking, it really, I think Holly has heard it from me a bunch of times. And I've already told you that you're absolutely one of my favorite directors I've ever worked with in my entire career. Because,
thank you.
Well, just because you do look out for people. You don't want people hurt by something that you're doing as a character, but people tie you to your character, and, you know, you become your character to them. So if Prue is, you know, drinking, Shannen must have a problem with drinking as well. And, you know, as we all know, I'd had so much bad press, and it was, you know, painful. And then it was almost like I got this restart doing Charmed that was really important to me, an important show. You know, my best friend was on it. It just, I wanted it to go smooth. And yeah, you did do that. Of course, you know, that's the director's cut. And, you know, the spelling book had a different idea. And I don't think they saw the correlation between the two at all. I think it was, you know, just them thinking that, you know, who wouldn't react like that?
But we were aware of things like that going forward. We were aware, like, I mean, sometimes there's a lot of Perrier happening with us because we were aware of being, truly, we were aware of being young women and, you know, somewhat role models, and we didn't want to always be seen drinking. So there is a lot of Perrier out there. Should have had a sponsor.
John, that's a testament to you as a filmmaker, to the fact that you thought about that you pulled it aside and came up with an alternative solution. Like, you know, especially in the game of TV, it's just kind of wide, medium, close up, and we're moving on. But the fact that you kind of approach each scene with, and that this is what I've experienced working with you throughout my career, there was always that extra, everything was thought out, thoughtful, and you really took time and you really care about your actors. And I think that's what separates you, you know, from most, and why we all love you so much and working with you.
Oh, thank you.
John will tell you a great story about what must have been one of my most uncomfortable moments, and he already knows what it is. I'll give you a hint. It was definitely the church. And coming out of the church and saying I'm good was so hard for me to be that joyful. Like, we all know I can cry and get angry and all the things, but to be joyful, to, you know, really sell happiness is hard for me for therapist reasons
you did it
only.
Brilliantly. It's one of my favorite moments.
You show so much joy around me, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. See? Joy. I bring it out in her.
There you go. You should have been there.
I bring it out in her.
It was so tough. It was so tough for me to do.
Okay, so I remember that Prue found the Ouija board. She put it on the table. Yeah. And then you started trying to break the news to me that Phoebe was moving back home. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like I could stop it because the house was left to all three of us. Is that correct?
Correct.
It was willed.
It was willed to all three of us.
So you all equally own it.
Yeah. Right. So it's not like I could say no.
No.
But our relationship was so bad in the beginning. But what's really interesting is that there were these moments, because I was like, oh God, Prue is such a bitch. I was like, oh, but then there were these moments that she, you know, when she brought her sister the extra blankets and you could see like the softness in Prue towards her, but it was obviously like built up resentment over her thinking that Phoebe had a relationship with her sleazy ex, Roger.
Yes.
Which is hard. Like, it's hard to think that somebody that you love is cheating on you with your boyfriend.
I like to remind people all the time that Prue and Phoebe never got along.
But there, you balanced it beautifully. There was that. That's what I love so much about this show. Is the dynamics between the sisters. You guys, you have this. Obviously, there's a history. It's apparent the way you're talking about her, and then the way you guys meet when she comes back home from New York. But then you have these tender moments, and then I like that. You know, she's the one who's kind of, like we said, she's leaning full into this new purpose, but you guys come to it and you start to understand your power through her. in that kind of in the at the pharmacy. That scene in the pharmacy where she's encouraging you to like lean into this and trust what it really is,
and like lose my temper and see like how my powers are actually triggered.
Correct. But it really does play well. You guys played beautifully opposite each other because you feel that it really did add such a, because you guys are all so specific with your characters and your choices. It really enhances the experience from an audience point of view. Like I love everything about the pilot. The pilot is so fantastic. It's one of my favorite episodes that I've seen to date. It's really the dynamics because you have that history, you have that underlying thing, but then you also come together for certain things and it makes it real. Cause that's what family relationships are. I love my dad more than anything. And he drives me. I have never yelled or cried more at anyone in my entire life than my father. And yet he is like, and I love him more than anything else in the world. And that's just kind of family dynamics, right? And so the fact that
that's what I try to explain to people all the time is the fact that we were so different and we're so independent, not just as characters, but as people is what makes it more relatable, not less. The fact that we do disagree, we do get along, don't get along, makes it more real, not less. And I know it's not a popular opinion, but the scene in the drugstore for me is where charm came together. That's where it coalesced in that scene as a show for me, as an episode for me. Why? I don't know. That's the scene that's memorable for me. And that's the scene that really is entertaining to me.
It was entertaining. And I like at the end, there's an acceptance. Like, how did that feel? And you kind of like instantly like, oh, that actually kind of felt good. And so you watch it wash over you. You've been like fighting against it. And then all of a sudden you have this realization, like, now obviously like in the coming episodes, you guys are still going to be fighting against your purpose and what this new life looks like. But in that moment you leaned in fully and like we see the shift. And it's awesome for an audience member.
Yeah, and you also see the shift in the relationship between Prue and Phoebe.
Yeah.
You see that, Prue's almost like thankful in a way for Phoebe pushing her. And, what's interesting is that the pilot, the first season and everything, like we all really got along. Yes, incredibly different people. But everybody got along. So you could feel like that, last like hug between the three sisters, you could actually feel like the love between all of us. It was kind of amazing.
Yeah. We were striving towards the same goal. And because we were all, kid actors, we had something to prove as adults. And it was, sink or swim.
Right. And it was your boyfriend at the time in the show, Jeremy.
Yes.
That was the friggin' killer.
I know.
God, you have bad taste.
Her picker is broken. Piper's picker is broken.
Does.
Piper's picker was broken for a long time.
But it got fixed?
Sure.
Yes. Thanks, John.
Sure. Yeah, it did.
It's funny you mentioned the pharmacy. That was the one scene that I was nervous about, not because of performance, but because of the physical effects.
Oh, right.
I didn't know if that stuff was going to come off the shelves, and if it did, and the take was no good, we'd have to reload it was going to take hours.
Were the grips shaking it?
Do you know how they did it? Do you remember?
Didn't they have the air puffers behind stuff like the?
They had a combination of air puffers, and they had
strings,
like a board that's kind of pushed the stuff out. As I remember, there were guys behind the shelf pushing it out.
It was manual.
There was a combination of, but
I remember the air blowers that that like you hit and it's a huge gust of like wind really quick, or air.
Yeah,
I mean, it was actually for that time, it was kind of amazing. Those special effects people who did all that, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it looked awesome.
I was like you. I wasn't quite sure it was going to work. I was like,
John Gray was the head of effects, and he did a very good job on the pilot, I think.
Yeah.
but yeah, that was the, but we got it on the first take, the wide shot. We got it on the first take, as I remember. So
I think so.
Thank you.
I liked getting everything on the first take all the time. That was my big thing. Like, let's
that was your big thing.
Well, that's why I got named One Take Doherty.
Yeah, I'm always better on take two.
Yeah.
And then take two.
I've been called that for ever since Doherty. Michael Landon days.
Yeah, I'm always better on take two. Take three goes a little awry. Take four, don't even try it.
Oh, nice rhyme.
Can we talk about the cat for 1 second? Because the cat is in the first scene.
I totally forgot that we stole the cat.
We didn't steal it. It found us because we're the best witches in the world. But the cat was in the first scene with the witch who's, doing her chants or prayers or
her
whatever.
Protection spell that didn't do jack
by herself. When Jeremy stabs her with that knife.
Athame.
Yes, thank you. And the cat doesn't even help her, which is like, I'm like, isn't this cat supposed to be kind of magical? The
protection spell didn't help her, and the cat did jack.
Right. But he apparently was not just dating you, but every other witch that he wanted to kill, because they were all like, Jeremy. He was busy. He was super busy. But then the cat, found us.
The one thing I noticed about the cat as well was TW, when he hit the crime scene, he was holding the cat and he checked out the necklace and he was like, okay. And then at the very end of the show, when he says goodbye and blah, 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 and the cat walks up and he turns around from the street about to say something, he clocks the cat that you guys are holding the cat.
Yes.
Right, because he notices the symbol, the collar.
Yeah.
He notices it before when the cat's
honestly, he is far enough away that he should not have seen that, but he sees that it's the same cat.
Correct.
Right. So at the end of the episode, when he clocks that, it made me go, okay, for future episodes, does that make him a little more suspect of you guys being witches?
he already knows. In my mind, he already knows.
Oh, I don't think he knew at all.
Well,
I think I think he saw that and was like, hey, what's why is this cat here now? But I don't think he connected that we were witches too.
He's been going to occult stores. He knew the whole time.
Yeah, but he's like my ex-boyfriend. I never showed any signs of being a witch. I don't think he knew yet. John, what do you think?
I don't think he knew yet. There's nothing in the episode that indicates that he's onto you guys. I mean, the fact is he believes there's such a thing as Wicca and witches, but I don't think he connects you to that yet.
You guys are underestimating Trudeau's detective skills. Okay, I'm just gonna say.
But in that shot, you isolated him for that, to have that look. Was there a conversation about him knowing too much, or giving away too much, or just clocking it?
I have no memory of that, of what we did then. I was just trying to get through the day. We were on Carroll Avenue and we had to get off the street.
Oh,
so.
That's it.
You're like, okay, that was great. Let's go.
The sun is setting. Losing the daylight.
The fact that Andy, from the outset, the first time we meet him at the crime scene, and he is coming from and following a lead from an occult shop. This. Right. This feels very like his theory about witches and them being real and existing in San Francisco, and kind of tied to a bunch of similar cases that he's kind of detecting, is evident from the very beginning. Right. And so the fact that the cat that he saw at this crime scene is now being held by, I think it was Phoebe is holding the cat before they all walk inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would be a very strong direct correlation that these three there's something going on about this, especially because the collar has the triquetra.
Well, I think Connie was probably laying that pipe, but right. I don't think there was anything that specifically indicates to me that he's going, light bulb, they're witches yet.
Yeah. I also remember in later episodes, he he doesn't really connect the witches thing. So I definitely don't think he had any indication in the pilot. Holly's got her own theory. I disagree with it.
I think he starts strong. In fact, on this second go around, because I destroyed Angie.
Oh yeah, we'll get into that.
But I think during the pilot in the first 2 episodes, he's actually he's on the right path.
He's a good detective.
He's a very
really good detective.
He's a very good detective. So
he flounders later. But
I'm sorry. At the beginning, he's a very good detective.
I agree. So at the end of the pilot, he asked Prue out, and Prue's very much like, my life is a little complicated right now, because obviously she's adjusting. And honestly, still one of my favorite things is that ending where Prue goes up the stairs, turns and looks at the door and like shuts it with her mind. Because for me, it's when she finally really, truly embraces that she's a witch. And sure, later, she struggles on and off, but that, like, I always get chills, and yet I smile thinking about that. When I rewatched, I was like, oh, what a good ending. It would have been good if it was any of us, right? But the fact that Prue was so hesitant to accept her powers, and then you realize that she's accepting them, and you go as an audience member, I imagine that you say like, oh my God, now they're really like the most powerful witches in the world, because they've all accepted things.
It's a very delicious moment. And I think one of the things that makes it delicious is that it's silent, that it's all done on your face, you know? And didn't they use that shot over and over in the credits or something?
In the credits, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's because it's iconic. I mean, it's absolutely iconic. And everything you said about emotionally the audience understanding that she now accepts it is absolutely true. And you sold it. I mean, it was, as I said, it was a delicious moment.
Well, you shot it. So you're delicious.
Yeah.
You're delicious.
I agree.
All right. Well, I think that's it for the pilot. We're going to see you again, because at least for the 3 episodes.
At least 17 times.
With you. I don't know if I'll bring you back for the others. I'm so mad. I'm like, wait.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
God, I love
I
you.
have no recollection of that episode whatsoever.
Yeah. But this is fun. Like, I love rewatching and then like seeing you and all of us having like our opinions about what happened. I think it's very cool. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. And it was a total pleasure not only to do this, but to see all you guys again, because I love you all very, very much.
We'll see you for all the other episodes if you'll come back.
Okay.
Thanks. So that's House of Halliwell. Thank you, you guys, again. And we'll see you for the next episode.